Hello folks and welcome back. We are here now. We finished up our EUIC coverage and we are here now to look at the Vancouver Regional Championships 2025 edition VGC Regulation G action. We're starting all the way from the very start of the stream, round number 2. No round number 1 that didn't get streamed. Round number 2 did. A lot of times in these early rounds, you get to see some more exciting compositions, some more interesting stuff than a lot of times you might see later in the round, just because some people get a little bit riskier and they like to bring up some fun stuff on stream. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at our competitors for game number 1. We have Abdullah Mohayyuddin and William Yee here. Now, I said things are going to be a little more exciting. You know, it's not too crazy. We have Calyrex Ice and Terapagos. Both have been quite popular. Calyrex Ice is probably the most popular restricted on the ladder, I would say, but Terapagos has not been seeing a lot of success and has slowly been going down in usage. For Abdullah here, we have Fluttermane, Heatran, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Ogerpon, Cornerstone Mask, and Terapagos. We saw a ton of Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon on stream at EUIC. It was incredibly popular. I believe by the day 2 or the top cut usage stats, Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon had overtaken Hearthflame Ogerpon, had made it into the top 12, which is pretty big. Part of it is that Rock is a really good defensive type, but the other thing is that sturdy ability, allowing it to resist really big one-hit knockouts. We saw so many of those in EUIC. These big restricted Pokemon, even things like Iron Hands as well, can just dish out Urshifu, can dish out so much insane damage in a single turn. Ogerpon Cornerstone Mask here with the Ivy Cudgel, Woodhammer, Follow Me, and Spiky Shield can dish out damage and also provide some redirection for that Terapagos. It is Terra Stellar Terapagos with leftovers, Terra Starstorm, Substitute Calm Mind, and Protect, a bulkier Terapagos set. And then very standard Fluttermane, Incineroar, Amoonguss, and then also that Heatran up at the top. We've been seeing that get paired with Terapagos a lot here. Both are pretty strong special attackers, and it seems like maybe the Heatran is able to cover for some of the weaknesses that Terapagos has, but overall, it just seems like an interesting pairing. Now, for William Yee, we have a pretty standard Calyrex Ice Rider team, but there is also a Smeargle with Decorate, Spore, Fake Out, and Follow Me. This is one of the most annoying Pokemon on the planet. It has Own Tempo, Focus Sash, and Terra Grass, so it essentially cannot get Rage Powdered or Spored itself. In DDF with Terra Dragon, as well as Psychic Seed, Follow Me, Trick Room, Heal Pulse, and Psychic. A lot of support for this Calyrex here, or whatever Pokemon is next to either the Indeedee or the Smeargle. Blood Moon Ursaluna up on the top right is notably Terra Poison. That's a big thing to keep note of. And we do also have an Ogerpon Hearthflame here. It has Horn Leech as its secondary offensive move. And then, notably, Urshifu Rapid Strike, one of, if not the most common Pokemon. And we have an Urshifu Single Strike here. Terra Dark Choice Band, Wicked Blow, Close Combat, U-Turn, and Sucker Punch. This thing is going to be dishing out literally as much damage as this Pokemon can allow, depending, of course, on the nature. Calyrex Ice Rider is a Terra Water. Sometimes we've been seeing Terra Normals or some other Terra types, but Terra Water has been the most consistent that we've seen overall, and it has Protect, Glacial Lance, Trick Room, and High Horse Power. So both teams here, nothing all of that crazy. A lot of Terapagos teams, are very similar to Abdullah's, where they do also have that Heatran to provide some additional coverage as well as some decent resistances. And for William Yee, the most surprising thing here, or really the most exciting thing, is kind of that Smeargle, which, if you're Abdullah, you just hate to see that Pokemon across from you. Spore is an absolute hassle to deal with, and you don't really have a lot of good options for dealing with it, and William is able to assess that pretty quick here. Rillaboom is one of the ways that you can potentially deal with the Smeargle here. It's going to depend on the speed, though, and Smeargle is pretty darn fast. Rillaboom is not always max speed. So Rillaboom and Terapagos for Abdullah versus the Smeargle and the Calyrex for William here. There is room for William to set up Trick Room that's going to allow this Calyrex to get in a lot more work done for the rest of this game. William is not under too much threat from the Terapagos or the Rillaboom. They're both pretty strong here, and I think people have been leaning towards not immediately terastallizing Terapagos as much, which means its damage output is a little bit more neutered, but Terapagos Terra Starstorm is still probably going to be able to do about 30 to 40% to that Calyrex. And Rillaboom, it could go ahead and go for a Fake Out if it so chooses, or it could go for something like a Grassy Glide. That said, if the Calyrex doesn't go for Trick Room here and instead just goes for the Glacial Lance, Fake Out comes through, doesn't matter anyways. The Rillaboom is faster, but the Terra Shell is going to mitigate a little bit of that damage. It wasn't going to do too much anyways. Smeargle doesn't exactly have that high of an attack stat. I think it probably would have done 4 damage instead of 2. But both restricted Pokemon are going to flinch here. So going into this next turn, Notably, Terapagos with the leftovers, with the grassy terrain on the field, means it's going to be able to recover a lot of HP very consistently and keep reusing that Terra Shell. For Abdullah, if you can maintain that Terra Shell, get as many uses out of it as possible, you're going to feel really, really good. We see him go for the U-turn into the Smeargle, does about 15 to 20% there. That could be notable later on, but the main thing is that it breaks Smeargle's Focus Sash. Now, I will say, I am surprised at how little that did from the Rillaboom, but at the end of the day, Smeargle's Focus Sash is broken. It should go down relatively easily throughout the rest of the game. Incineroar now comes in, Intimidate comes through, but Clear Amulet blocks that stat drop for the Calyrex Ice Rider. The Terapagos goes for the substitute here. Spore comes through, and it is blocked by that substitute. Calyrex, though, now gets a Trick Room off. Calyrex should be the slowest thing on the field. However, it does have to be worried about Fake Out here. For Abdullah, you kind of want to probably take a turn or two here to heal up some. If you can protect with your substitute, that should, on the next turn, get you pretty close to full HP, if not all the way there. Yeah, I don't think another turn of recovery will get Abdullah all the way up to full HP with that Terapagos. I think it'd be pretty close here, but I didn't quite see the exact healing numbers that he got. For William, you still have the option to go for Spore here. Incineroar is Rocky Helmet. You can put it to sleep if you want, but also Decorate onto the Calyrex Ice Rider means it's going to be doing a lot more damage. High horsepower into the Incineroar is not too bad of an option. Again, you do have to be worried about Fake Out. That is ever present, but William goes ahead, withdraws the Smeargle, understands that there's a potential threat to this Calyrex here, and brings out Urshifu Single Strike instead. Fake Out does come through onto the Calyrex here, gets a little bit more chip damage in, and the flinch comes through. Calm Mind now for Abdullah here, guaranteeing that not a lot of damage is going into this Terapagos spot. So that substitute going to be staying up very, very comfortably for another turn here. And now Terapagos has a good amount of damage to back up this bulk that it is building on. So it looks like, all right, so 12 HP is exactly what Abdullah is restoring each time with the grassy terrain and the leftovers, so that was just enough to put that Terra Shell back in action. That is pretty big against something like an Urshifu Single Strike, although that substitute is still going to be up for the time being. Calyrex is going to be able to fire off probably a pretty big attack here. Urshifu could go for something like a Sucker Punch or a U-turn, honestly. Could be pretty big. If U-turn is able to break that substitute, that could actually be pretty massive for William going into the next turn. Or alternatively, if the Glacial Lance can break the substitute and then you U-turn into the Terapagos to break the Terra Shell again, that might give you an opportunity to finish it out on the next turn, depending on what else William has in the back. Again, Protect is still a very valid choice for Abdullah. We see the high horsepower come through, but it misses. That is absolutely massive, and it was into the Incineroar. The Will-O-Wisp comes through now. I'm not sure if that high horsepower actually KOs the Incineroar. I think it is close. It fully depends on how bulky the Incineroar is, but that Will-O-Wisp coming in now massively neuters that Calyrex. We do see the Wicked Blow coming through from the Urshifu. I think that's telling us that William was planning on doubling up into that Incineroar one way or another, but that Will-O-Wisp puts this Calyrex completely out of commission. The Terra Starstorm, the single target due to it not being terrestrialized yet for the Terapagos, takes out the Urshifu really, really cleanly here. Again, I'm not, there's a chance that KOs through Rocky Helmet, but I am not certain. But with the Calm Mind boost, I think it probably does. This Calyrex is going to stay relatively healthy thanks to this grassy terrain, but at the end of the day, if you're Abdullah, you're pretty happy with this current scenario because Calyrex is not going to be doing much with its attack stat halved. Blood Moon Ursaluna now comes onto the field, but there's only 2 turns of Trick Room left. It does not have a lot of time to make use of its slower speed stat. It does have Life Orb. It can go for really, really strong Hyper Voices here, but it has a lot of work to do. So for this Calyrex, all right, William goes ahead, just gets it on out of there. Hopefully maybe wants to try to save it for cleaning up in the later stages of the game, but brings the Smeargle in, wants to focus up around this Ursaluna Blood Moon. Terra Shell is pretty big. It is going to, even with this substitute, or actually Hyper Voice bypass the substitute, which is pretty big here. So Incineroar takes a lot of damage, but the knockoff comes in now onto the Smeargle. Focus Sash was already broken, but it does get some additional damage with that knockoff. Terra Starstorm again from this Terapagos. I believe it's going into the Ursaluna. Doesn't quite get the KO, but takes Ursaluna down extremely, extremely low. The substitute is still up, but Terapagos, Again, it's going to get some additional healing here. It won't go all the way back up to full, but it will be pretty close. A Protect here will give Abdullah another use of the Terra Shell on the next turn if that is what he chooses to go for. At the same time, you know Hyper Voice isn't going to do anything too crazy, but a Protect from the Terrapagos here would result in Trick Room fading out, as well as Terrapagos getting to full HP. Again, that's not a necessity, but it is something that William has to keep in mind. Abdullah has been comfortable not terrestrializing yet so far, and really, if that continues to be the case for William, you're going to read that this might be a Protect. For Abdullah here, you're in the driver's seat. You can kind of do whatever you want. Both of your opponent's last two Pokemon that are on the field are incredibly low, and it's a Calyrex Ice Rider in the back that really is not going to be doing any damage. Your Incineroar is a little bit weak, so there's a world maybe where the Calyrex gets to a +1 towards the end of this game, but that really won't offset having the potential fake outs in the back with Rillaboom. And we actually see Abdullah go ahead and swap out the Incineroar, bring the Rillaboom back on in, and reset the grassy terrain. Again, keeping this Terrapagos as topped up as possible. Terrapagos, I believe, is going to be terrestrializing here. That is exactly what we see from Abdullah. So this will be a double hitting Terra Star Storm. It'll be going into both slots. Both of William's Pokemon are pretty certain to be going down here. And I think if you're Abdullah, you're in a really, really comfortable spot going into these last couple of turns. This substitute just is not going to get broken anytime soon here, I think. Smeargle does go for the Decorate here. This is going to make the Ursaluna Blood Moon do quite a bit more, but I just don't know if it is going to be enough, especially with this initial special defense boost that this Terrapagos has thanks to its Calm Mind. The Terra Starstorm comes in as well. The Terrapagos also appreciated that HP boost, but I believe it was going to survive no matter what. Terra Starstorm comes through. This is going to be 2 Pokemon going down for William here, and this is the last turn of Trick Room as well. Calyrex is going to come in, having to deal with a potential fake out from the Rillaboom, and having to deal with 4 Pokemon on Abdullah's side. That Will-O-Wisp off of the high horsepower miss is just absolutely massive. Even if that Incineroar didn't go down and it stayed up, the Wicked Blow would have taken it out, and that would have dramatically changed the course of this game. Trick Room ends. William has one last Pokemon to bring in, but this game is essentially done and dusted here. The high horsepower miss is really, really tough, but then additionally, not having enough options to take down this substitute for the Terrapagos also feels really, really rough. Hyper Voice is your way around the substitute if you're William, but with that special defense boost already from the Calm Mind, as well as Terra Shell consistently staying up, it feels really hard for William. William does have options in the back, like having Indeedee, that he could potentially bring in to counteract this grassy terrain, which so far we have seen that Fake Out has been a pretty big role for Abdullah. The grassy terrain, restoring that Terra Shell a lot earlier on a much faster clock has been really, really big. Bringing in Indeedee is definitely something William could consider. Again, not a necessity, but we could absolutely see it. Abdullah also we haven't even seen the 4th Pokemon, or William doesn't. So right now, if you're Abdullah, you can just kind of hide that information. You have no reason to reveal that. You can go for Fake Out on the Rillaboom here, as well as another Terra Starstorm, or go for more damage. Like you are under absolutely no pressure as Abdullah. William just goes for the Protect here. There's a world maybe where you can get some crits with Calyrex if it's able to survive another Terra Starstorm here, but this is going to be a stellarized Terra Starstorm with a double Calm Mind boost. I think this is going to be a really, really hard one for William if there is even any chance. As well, as long as Abdullah, I believe, plays decently, he should have this locked up. Now, going into the next game, if you're Abdullah, the question becomes that high horsepower miss. Is that something that you want to rely on? You saw that William was willing to go for it in Trick Room. Does that KO your Incineroar? That could be a pretty big thing to have in your back pocket. The Calyrex did not have to Terra Water either. We actually did not see a Terrestrialization from William that could come into play in the next game, but game number 1 goes to Abdullah Mohayyuddin. Now, going into game number 2, we've already talked about it quite a bit already. We're going to go ahead and click over to it in just a couple seconds here. But for Abdullah, what do you want to bring? Do you want to bring the same for William? Do you need to change it up? William says, no, we're going with the same thing. I'm confident that high horsepower. Neither player has changed things up here. Smeargle and Calyrex for William, and Terrapagos and Rillaboom for Abdullah. Now, we saw the Fake Out trades on the first turn. If you are either of these players, do you want to anticipate that? Try to do something else. If you are William, do you maybe want to switch out the Calyrex, bring in something else that you have in the back already to take that Fake Out? Bring in a potential... Ogerpon Hearthflame here does pretty well into the Rillaboom, can land critical hits onto the Calyrex. Or do you want to go ahead and bring in the Indeedee and stop this fake out? But we do, yeah. So we don't see Indeedee come in. I think we're just going to see, we actually don't see a reflect of the previous game here. We see a Calm Mind come out of the Terapagos, fake out from the Rillaboom into the Calyrex here, Decorate coming out from the Smeargle to give this Calyrex a special attack and attack boost. Mainly the attack boost is the big thing here. Let's be real here. That is going to be very, very big. Even though this Terapagos gets a Calm Mind off, the Calyrex gets some bulk of its own. Now, Calyrex isn't going to be going down to any damage from any combined damage from the Rillaboom and the Terapagos unless there's a major crit. This is a pretty good chance, I feel like, for William to go for Trick Room. That is going to put Calyrex in a pretty good position, but then you are once again worried about the potential of a fake out into Will-O-Wisp from the Incineroar again. That said, Glacial Lance at +2, that is a testy spot. It depends on how much bulk the opposing Incineroar has. Incineroar tends to be incredibly bulky. It's not going to have to take an Intimidate, but it is resisted. And really, this Calyrex does not want to have to take another Will-O-Wisp. We see the U-turn come out for Abdullah. Very similar to game number 1 so far in this respect. The Focus Sash is broken from the Smeargle, although we did see it survive a knockoff from the Incineroar as well later in the game. Speaking of, here he comes, the boy himself, the most used Pokemon since it's been released. Well, at least not, in the numbers right now, but probably overall, if you look at the grand numbers, is the case. Terra Starstorm comes out, single target from the Terapagos, and takes the Smeargle down here. No clue what it was going to click this time. Could have been another Decorate, could have been a Spore. Spore would have been pretty all right here. We do see the Glacial Lance come out of the Calyrex here, not going for the Trick Room on this turn, just going for straight damage. And even with that Terra Shell and with the resistance from the Incineroar, takes Incineroar down to about half HP, does about a third of Terapagos' health here, and it recovers a decent amount of that off of the terrain and the leftovers HP recovery. Notably, this is not a 2-hit KO on the Incineroar, so William is down a Pokemon, has some decent damage on the opposing Pokemon, and has broken through that Terra Shell. Urshifu Single Strike now on the field. It is not intimidated, so once again, it has a decent shot at doing quite a bit of damage. That said, we saw this guy go down incredibly quick in the previous game, and we could very well see a fake out into a Terra Starstorm into that again. Again, this Calyrex is not going to be able to take a KO into either the Incineroar or the Terapagos unless it wants to go for another high horsepower, in which case we could certainly see a whiff. William is going to be going for a Terastallization here on the Urshifu. It is going to be full-on Terra Dark, trying to get the most out of the Wicked Blow on this turn. I imagine that means we're not going to be seeing, or well, we very well could be seeing the fake out into it. It is instead just a Sucker Punch from this Urshifu. This is going to be quite a lot of damage, and it does not do enough to take out the Terapagos. Terra Starstorm now, it is at +1. This is going to do a lot, brings Urshifu down to just a sliver of its HP, and another Will-O-Wisp connecting for Abdullah here. This is a +2 Calyrex already, so it's not completely out of the game right now. A Glacial Lance here would take out the opposing Terapagos and tie up the Pokemon 1-2-1. Bring the Incineroar down just below half HP after this grassy terrain recovery. Does about 50 damage. It's not going to be able to KO the Incineroar on the next turn either, but with Urshifu on the field, it is going to have a little bit of a speed advantage. It depends on what Abdullah brings in here. We already know that Rillaboom could be brought in. It has the opportunity to go for something like Grassy Glide or Fake Out, but we can already see that Abdullah also has the Cornerstone Ogerpon in the back. The mind games between Follow Me and Spiky Shield are pretty big. That said, Unseen Fist still goes through that Spiky Shield, but this is not a Rapid Strike Urshifu. Even if a potential close combat would take down the Cornerstone Ogerpon, that sturdy ability is going to come in pretty darn clutch, or a Wicked Blow either. So Rillaboom makes its way back onto the field. It could go for a Fake Out or a Grassy Glide here. Abdullah does not know what William has in the back, but in the previous game, we did not see the Indeedee. We haven't seen the Indeedee come out yet for William. It's highly unlikely that that is in the back. Okay, so we see William withdraw the Urshifu, maintain it for a turn, and Ursaluna is what comes in again. So the same for William in this game. Fake Out goes into the Calyrex and knock off into the Ursaluna. This is about as good of a turn as you could get from Abdullah. You stop the Calyrex from being able to get any damage onto the board, and you neuter a lot of the damage that the Ursaluna has as well. Now, there are neither of these Pokemon is weak in their current state, but they're not going to be hitting nearly as hard as they were. That knockoff is absolutely massive, and Abdullah should have the speed advantage with both of these Pokemon. U-Turn, Woodhammer, both can do a decent amount of damage. A Terra Grass Woodhammer would do some absolutely disgusting things here, and notably, William is already terrestrialized, so William cannot escape a potential super effective knockoff from this Incineroar going into this turn. William is going to terrestrialize here. This is going to be the Rillaboom. We already saw the buttons get pressed. It's going to be Terra Grass. It's going to massively buff up the Wood Hammer damage. This is another thing to keep in mind for Abdullah. With that Life Orb getting knocked off, this Rillaboom is Assault Vest. The Ursaluna is going to remain ground type. So this Rillaboom is going to be able to survive basically anything that the Ursaluna throws at it, still deal consistent damage back, and it should not go down. Knockoff comes through onto the Calyrex. That's going to take it down super cleanly here, and with both these Pokemon being faster, the Calyrex had no chance unless I wanted to try to go for a potential Protect and let the Blood Moon Ursaluna try to make something happen. Blood Moon is coming out here. This should do enough. It does indeed to take out the Incineroar, but William is already down a Calyrex and a Smeargle, and Urshifu is at an incredibly low amount of HP. Rillaboom is terrestrialized, and with that Assault Vest, it's going to be incredibly resistant to what this Ursaluna has. Now, we are seeing, like, there is no Grassy Glide now, which could potentially come in big, depending on what happens with this Urshifu in the back for William. Sucker Punch is an option, but it's really tough to get locked into that against an Ogerpon. That said, you could go for the Sucker Punch into the Rillaboom, get guaranteed damage on it, since it cannot go for a non-damaging move. That would leave Ogerpon open to kind of do whatever it wanted to here, and even if you could one-shot it, even if, it was still going to take 2 minimum shots to take down. William goes down, the Urshifu takes the Ivy Cudgel and goes down here. No Sucker Punch for William. That could have been pretty big. I think if you're William, you either have to try to use Sucker Punch, or you're banking on Abdullah making a misplay. The Woodhammer comes through for the Rillaboom. This should probably KO this Ursaluna no matter what. Indeed, it does. There was not much hope for William, and Abdullah locks this up in 2 quick games. Congratulations on a pretty swift round 1. Terapagos here showing out and doing quite a number, but Rillaboom, kind of the all-star of that second game. A lot of times you see it more as a utility or pivot mon with additional damage kind of, here and there, but it really showed out with how much it can get done with a Terra Grass Woodhammer in that game number 2. So with that said, we'll be going with round number 3 in our next video. Until next time, be safe, be smart, make wise decisions, and farewell.